You're listening to The Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everybody, this is Luke Hector. Trying to get the camera right on that one. This is another podcast episode recording on the 12th of May 24, and we're in a bit of a heat wave in the UK, which is oh so joyous for me, isn't it? Someone who lives in a new build house which turns into a sauna the moment the mercury gets above like 18 degrees, let alone early 20s as it is at the moment, and yes, I'm doing everything I can to keep the house cool, curtains closed, windows open at night, ice drinks, I have smoothies now because I'm trying to go on a diet because I've put on a bit of weight over the last couple of months, so I need to seriously lose a bit of that before the expo. But mainly just lose it in general. Got cooler, which I can't use because the microphone will pick it up. I'm trying to keep myself cool, and I don't like it. I hate the summer, I hate the heat. It's just not something that I'm particularly accustomed to. But, that being said, it will cool down at the end of tonight and should be a bit better for the rest of May, or at least proper May temperatures. So it should be, I think this is just a short-term boost of heat, but yes, I'm going to dread when we get into June, July and August and I start sweltering like a pig, particularly when I'm trying to record videos, because obviously I can't use any type of cooling when I'm recording a video because the sound would just pick up, and all we have is an air fan, freeze pack cooler. We don't have air conditioning like the Americans and that, so it's not my favorite time. I would much rather be able to go somewhere like the Arctic Circle, which I'm looking into doing, but that wouldn't be until something like December, January time when the Northern Lights are around. And I know at the moment the UK is apparently seeing the Northern Lights, but I have not noticed them. I've been doing other stuff. And even then, where I live, you would have to use a camera lens in order to see them, and I don't know about you, but I don't want sloppy seconds when it comes to the Northern Lights. If I see them, I want to see them properly. I want to be in the Arctic Circle, up north, crystal clear skies, no light pollution, and seeing them for all their glory. That's how I want to see them. I don't want to see some camera lens knockoff of the Northern Lights. I know it still looks cool, but I don't know. This is just me being, picky with that. Oh well, but that aside, things are generally still fairly alright with the health. The wrists are healing. They're getting to a good point. The left one is still a little troublesome, but not too bad. That is definitely on the mend. My right finger, middle finger on the other hand, I've stubbed it so many times now, I swear it's broken beyond belief, so that one's always a bit of a pain. But other than that, generally pretty good. Work is work, whatever. I'm not exactly bawled over about work, especially as it's a annual appraisal time of year, which is never a good thing to have to sit through. I hate annual appraisals. They're always focused on the negative, and it's always trying to tick a box for PR and HR purposes. So, you never feel that an appraisal is done for your benefit. You always feel it's just something that has to be done by the corporates, and you might have you do really well at this, this, and this, right? That's under the carpet. Now let's spend the next 45 minutes talking about this negative that we must address. It's always like that. Just never a fan. Blog-wise, though, the blog could be better. I mean, it's still going strong, 23,322 figures for subscribers, but recent content has not been as popular as I would like. I mean, I haven't done a huge amount since... Actually, no, I feel like I've done a decent amount. I mean, I got the Moonraker expansions and Moonraker review released, so Moonrakers has done alright, 2,000 views, but that's been out since May the 1st, so I don't know. The expansions, not even 1,000 views. Canvas, barely over 1,000 views. The expansions, nowhere near 1,000 views, so... yeah, viewership has been quite low recently, and I wonder if that's just down to timing, bank holiday weekends in the UK, the weather being good, therefore, people are off out doing stuff. Even did the Earth Abundance prototype review, which we'll get onto in a minute, because I need to address something with that one, but that one has been popular. 2,500 views, not too bad since May the 5th. I give credit, that one's done pretty well, but again, I need to talk about that fairly shortly. But yeah, just not a huge amount viewership-wise, so hopefully some content along the way will address those concerns. I mean, what have I got left? The problem is not a lot gets released this time of year, so we don't get anything until about sort of Gen Con time when it comes to board game releases, and then it all explodes at Essen, which makes that bit horrendous for me. So at this time of year, there really isn't a lot of games to talk about. I mean, I've said that I probably should do a Great Western Trail New Zealand review at some stage. I had Moonrakers and the Earth Abundance thing. But other than that, the only review copy I've got at the moment is a game called Open Season by Sit Down Games. They've sent me that, so I need to do a review for that one. And at the moment, people have requested I review Unsettled, which I'm going to give some first impressions of later this episode. But, it's not a review copy. It was just a late delayed Kickstarter that finally arrived. And I'm like, okay, fine. Maybe I can give it a review. But I probably should use this time to do some top 10 lists. The Patreons did vote on some top 10 lists, and I am overdue trying to get those out. But have no fear, they are coming. I mean, I definitely want to do a solo list for, I think, top 10 sandbox games. I think that would be quite an enjoyable one to do. But they voted on top 10 irritating design decisions and in games, and I was going to do that solo for us this weekend, but then Mark Monk from Ninja Geek Games got in touch. We were discussing what we were going to play at Games Expo, and I said to him, well, you know what, let's do a collab again. It worked well last time. I'm doing this list, you fancy it? And he said, yeah, let me get on with it. So I'll wait for him to see what he says. Probably if he can get a list together of 10. I've already got my list. I've got my list shortlisted. I just need to arrange it in rankings. But once we've both got a list together, we'll do a live stream. So we'll do a live stream collab with the top 10 irritating design decisions. So I'm a bit overdue, Patreon. Sorry about that. But you are at least getting a live stream collaboration for it. So you're getting a better version of the list just a little bit later than I would have liked to have got it out. So sorry about that. Anything else to really mention? No, not really. No, other than that, content is a little bit on the light side. This is not a UK Games Expo preview. I will do one, but I'm going to wait until the next episode, because the next episode will be literally a few days before the expo starts, and I think that's better timing-wise, because then all the information we're going to have about the expo would have been released by then. But also, as I glance through the expo's list of, here's the new games that are on and stuff like that, there is really not a lot. I mean, the Games Expo really is not good for new releases. There's one or two that I've seen. Alley Cat's got a nice simple one coming out. There's a kind of Lord of the Rings duel coming out, which we don't have much detail on, but I should be able to hopefully get a chance to try that one. I think Asmodee's sort of putting that one out. And other than that, there just really isn't a lot that I'm interested in or haven't played already, and or haven't seen Essen before. So the expo for me is mainly just a case of see what's there, immerse in the atmosphere, meet people, go play some games. I mean, I'm going to be doing a fair amount of game playing. As I mentioned, Mark Monk earlier wants me to teach him and his friends hegemony. So that's going to happen. And, that'll be a fairly lengthy game, but that should be quite fun. But other than that, I'll just play some games. If I see people I know from the content creator world, it would be great to play some games with, the respected ones of that crowd. I think Sarah Shah, Board Games in a Minute, should be there, and we tend to meet up and have a good time. I'll no doubt probably spot her at the press preview, but it's hinted that I'll be able to try out Inventors of the South Tigris, because she's very good at getting that to... Garfield Games are very good at sending her advanced copies, not necessarily me, but we already know why. It's shipping. But shipping from New Zealand isn't cheap. But it's a shame because I love their games. You think I'd be the first person to get a review copy from them, but shipping costs, what can you do? But last time Sarah was kind enough to show me Scholars of the South Tigris early. We had to try that one. I think we also did Wayfarers early, I have a feeling. Or maybe it was just Wayfarers, I can't remember. But she's definitely shown me another game like that. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Inventors is like. So if I get a chance to try that at the expo, I will no doubt, if I'm allowed to, relay some thoughts on that. So that'll be quite cool. But other than that, I'll see a bunch of you there. And if you do see me, just rock up and say hi. I've got very few meetings. In fact, I haven't really booked any because there's not a huge amount to talk about with a lot of them. I'll speak to them while I'm at the expo because it's never that busy. But aside from, apart from a couple of times where I may have the odd meeting slot, I'm not going to be that busy other than playing games with people. So by all means, just rock up and say hi. Don't feel, don't get to, what's the word? I forget what the phrase is where you sort of like get a bit nervous when you meet your heroes, that kind of thing. I mean, I am nobody's hero, but if people just want to say hi, don't feel like you got to be afraid to do so. If I'm busy and in a hurry, I will tell you, but I'm not going to shove it in your face, okay? I'll be very apologetic about it. But most of the time, you catch me, I'm going to be willing to say hi, selfie, photo, just to say thanks. It'll be great to see you all. So, right, what have I been getting on with in terms of gaming? Well, let's see, I've got games I've played, and I've got my topic of the day. I'm going to do the important message first, though. So, Earth Abundance. I did this as a prototype review, and as you know, I hate doing Kickstarter prototype reviews. There are several reasons for this. I don't like, talking great or bad about a game before it's like when it's an advert effectively, because the game hasn't been released properly. So I'm always a bit touchy about that, especially with Kickstarter, because effectively Kickstarter is trying to sell this game, and if I go out and give an honest opinion, then some people are going to not buy it. And from a publisher standpoint, from a designer standpoint, that's not a good thing. But I give honest opinions. I don't sugarcoat things. And a lot of previews for Kickstarter games are all just sugarcoating. It's like, here's this. It's amazing. You definitely want it. Go spend your hard-earned money. Whereas I try to be a little bit more realistic with my cash. So they're not great for me, but I do cherry pick my favorites, and I specifically requested this one because, of course, I love Earth, so it was definitely something that was in my interest. Anything else I might do? Probably New World Order, or World Order, whatever it is, from the creators of Hegemony. That I'm definitely interested, so if I get a chance to preview that, I will. But like I say, it is few and far between. So seriously, I know all you indie publishers out there, if you watch any of my shows, if you pay attention to what I do at all and don't just send out cold, cool emails, which I cannot stand. If I can tell from the language that your email is a cold, cool email, you will not get a response, okay, to your Kickstarter game review request. It's not going to happen. But even then, I'm not in the market for doing previews of Kickstarter indie games. It's not what I like to do, and as we're going to find out later, there's another reason why I'm not a fan. But on with the main plot. So Earth Abundance, I did this prototype review, and I did it pretty much as a prototype review. So I was giving my honest opinions about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and what it added and what I wish it would change before it gets a final release, okay? So I gave a decent opinion. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10, which is not a bad rating. It's above average. I wasn't quite saying you must go out and get this, and even with what I'm about to say in a minute, I still don't think it's a must buy. I think it's a nice addition, but I don't think it's like essential. It doesn't particularly fix anything from the base game apart from one minor aspect, and I had issues with it in the review. Now, the review is still valid, okay? I mean, a lot of the points I raised are still valid. There is one point that I do need to clarify a bit more, though, and I made a pinned post on the video to rectify this. And I've been in discussions with Maxime, the designer, who is probably one of the friendliest designers I've actually had to deal with in recent years. He is a very nice guy. I hope to get to meet him in person at some point, if I haven't already. I'm so useless with names and faces, so apologies for that. But I gotta say, there are some designers I have dealt with before who, if you say any remote criticism about their game, they will rip your head off. And I hate dealing with them. It's like, this is my precious baby. How dare you touch this? How dare you? And Super Club. Yeah, we can think about that one. But this Maxime got in touch with me on the comments and that, because he responds to a lot of YouTube comments on the reviews, which is quite cool. It's good to see that. It shows that he has an interest. And, not just in the channel, but also his game. But the thing was, we were discussing a point I made about the interactive player powers. The ones that say are based on other players, all players, or your neighbor. And I had a little, not a rant, but I had a criticism where I thought the way that these work, the fact that the timings weren't entirely clear and such, made it so that it made the game a bit clunky, because you're constantly having to shout out, oh, you're getting this, and all that. And it was like grinding the game a lot from, that kind of perspective. And the ones I'm kind of talking about, let's say, not these ones, these are the seeds. If I can find an example of the player power ones. Yeah, here we go. So, where this one is saying you get +2 seeds, and everybody at the table also gets 4 sprout cubes. And there's several instances of this where essentially other players, like here, you get something for what your neighbor is and stuff like that. Well, I thought, partially what happened is that there's two things that mean I need to kind of retcon this. Firstly, I did interpret some rules wrong from the book. One or two rules I got slightly wrong. But, and Maxim has acknowledged this, the rulebook is not entirely clear on some of these aspects, and certain key things that would have rectified it for me were written in the wrong place in the book. Like the rule book is still okay, but it does need a spot of rearranging and a bit of clarity in places. And because of this, I'm not the only person who has made this mistake. Other reviewers from other countries and stuff I know have done this, and Maxim has acknowledged this as well. So both of us have learned, and we debated this on the comments, and very friendly debate. I mean, this is what I like to see. If you disagree with something I said, then let's debate. And, we could convince each other that one of us is wrong, or we agree to disagree, whatever. But this was a very good civil debate. And it was, once it was clarified exactly how these powers worked, things lit up a little bit more for this game. Now, essentially, firstly, this particular ability here, where you've got like the neighbor one, that wasn't entirely clear at first, and I did interpret this wrong. And, this one's a little bit clearer than others, but this one is basically saying you get to compost a card from your hand for every event that a single neighbor of yours has played. Now, that one's a little bit clearer than some of the others, but there's one or two which had, like color abilities and things like that. And some of these were mistaken to mean that you and the other players could trigger those color abilities. It's like, whoops, okay, that was wrong. But, that wasn't necessarily the main problem. But it was more the fact that the idea is that you now have this new rule where sprout cubes can be put on your board effectively, and then you put them out to, other cards at the end of your turn. Now, this is written later in the rulebook, as is the point about player powers that involve other players, these cubes going to that board. So there was a little bit of like, oh, hang on, this was missed. And, because not all the abilities are sprout cubes, some of them are, triggering abilities and things like that, it made it a little bit weird to say, well, how does the timing with these work? How does the timing with these work? Now, it has been explained to me, and it will be corrected in the rulebook. It will be written with more clarity. So both of us have learned something from this, which is good. We've both come away from this, feeling better about what we've done, and also the game is going to be improved as a result. So everybody wins. But with the clarifications in mind, what I said about the game grinding a lot during those multiplayer powers doesn't quite ring true anymore. I mean, there's an element of that, because technically you're constantly saying to people you've got more sprout cubes, and this is, constantly like going around while you're trying to concentrate on your tableau, and people are shouting at you, oh, by the way, you get cubes. And are you going to interrupt your tableau like ability triggering to get the cubes, or are you relying on that other player to give you the cubes? There's going to be an element of that still remains, which is a little negative, but the rest of what I said doesn't really hold true. The rest of the grindiness kind of goes away at that point. And with that in mind, the multiplayer powers are better than they were before. But I still don't think the expansion is suddenly like a must-buy as a result, but it has improved in my estimation. So where previously I gave it a 6 out of 10, I would probably now give it a 7 out of 10. I would actually give this a seal of endorsement and say, based on what I've played on the prototype, I think this is a solid expansion that's worth considering. But I still don't think it is essential, because it doesn't really fix anything from the base game. It just adds a couple of new elements, and both elements are fine. I think the multiplayer powers are okay, but I don't really care that much. I mean, when I've played the game more since with the clarifications in mind, and yeah, the multiplayer powers are a little better, but a lot of the times I don't care if I'm giving the opponent stuff, because I should be giving myself more for what I'm doing. So yes, I'm giving you 2 sprout cubes every time someone triggers the red ability because of my powers, but I'm composting 5 cards from the deck at a time every time you trigger red. So why on earth do I care if I'm giving everybody 2 sprout cubes if I can compost 5 cards? I'm getting 5 victory points, you're getting 2. Yeah, you can convert sprout cubes into soil and that, but you have capacity issues with, sprout cubes. So yeah, I might give you a bunch of sprout cubes, but you might still not have room on the cards to put them out. So there's not really a time when I'm looking at any of these multiplayer cards and going, maybe I don't want to trigger one of these this turn. No, if I can trigger it, I'm going to trigger it. So I still don't think they're as impactful as could be, but they are improved. I still think the best thing as an expansion is just having more cards in general and the seed germination mechanic. I think the seeds are cool. They did help me fast track the end of the game in the last game I played because I used seeds to get soil, which was necessary to do a final planting. But mainly, I just think the seeds are good for that search ability because I used it in the last game. I had a spare seed. I couldn't find anything to give me more seeds, but for my ecosystem, I needed directional aid cards. I set that as my seed, searched for a card, got one that worked with that as well as a couple of other fauna objectives. Great. So the seeds, I think, are the best part of this expansion. But again, I could do without them. It's not like I need it. So, I'm still keen to get this expansion and add it to the pile. I think it will still be something I'm going to get. But it does sort of mean that, I don't think I had to rush it. I mean, if somebody had Earth and didn't have the expansion, I wouldn't bat an eyelid about playing it. If they wanted to play it, I would still play it and have a fantastic time. And I still think that this expansion could have added more islands and climates and ecosystem and fauna objectives because it really doesn't add that many. And what they do add aren't that interesting. I mean, the four, six fauna objectives, the brown cards, are literally just points for this ability on a card, this ability on a card, this ability on a card. It's adding more powers, but they're not particularly interesting ones. They're kind of generic. So, as I say, 7 out of 10. I hold my hand up, got something wrong. Not entirely my fault, but fair enough. It's there and it does need to be mentioned. And I've put a pinned post on the video to highlight this fact. I would probably go now to a 7 out of 10, not a 6 out of 10, and say that this is a good expansion, worth considering, just not a must buy. So it's not like my rating has changed dramatically, but given that we had such a nice debate, the fact that he's a nice guy, and the fact that, fair is fair. I wasn't entirely right on my interpretation of some of the rules. I felt a correction was definitely needed. You might be wondering what the jiggling is. That is me holding an ice cube filled squash because of how lovely and cold this drink is and how hot it is in this room at the moment. Oh, that feels so good every time I take a sip. Right. Okay, so with that out of the way, what else have I been doing? Well, let's quickly talk about other games I have played. Very briefly, Sidereal Confluence. This is a big, massive Euro game about negotiation and trading cubes of various colors. Who cares what they're called? They are cubes. And it's a game I enjoy. I don't love it. I like it. My friends are bigger fans of it than I am, but we played it on Friday. I've played it several times with them before. They've played it more times than I have, and we're going to play it again next Friday because what we're trying to do is test out these expansion races from the bifurcation. Is it bifurcation? Bifurcation, whatever. I don't know what the hell the names mean, but this is the expansion to Sidereal Confluence, and because we know how to play the game, we can play the expansion races and deal with all the janky stuff they do. So we're kind of on a mission to test them all out. Well, played it the other time, and I was playing the Charity Zeth Foundation, or whatever they're called. So they're basically the pink race. I forget what the Zeth do in the base game. I don't think I've actually played them in the base game version, but in this particular one, they have some cool undesirable generators that other players own, but you basically have to pay them in order to run them. But you can kind of coax them into doing it, and obviously that's part of your bartering power, but you can't run them yourself, but you're the only one who can run them. So even if they own the generator, they have to pay you to run them, or you have to pay them to get access to them. It's kind of odd, really, how it works. But the other thing with them is that they have no colony support, so they can't take any planets whatsoever. Instead, they put a little token on the planet, and if another player takes it, they get to upgrade one of their starter generators, and if the planet gets consumed, which rarely happens unless you've got two very specific factions in the game, you'll get it back and get a VP point. The game was fine and fun, but I think the Charity Zeth are a very weak and not particularly fun race. I mean, there's not much jankiness to them. They have low impact, but they're difficulty 5, so they're quite a high difficulty race to play. But I just found them kind of boring because they don't have anything really that interesting. The fact that they have to buy use of their own kind of generators from other players just means that you're having to go through more hassle to run anything decent. And a lot of their generators and what they can make makes a spread of resources. They're very bad at making anything in bulk. The problem is, research teams are how you get points and win in this game. To do research teams, you have to make stuff in bulk. And if you can't make stuff in bulk, then you're going to struggle. You know, it's all right saying, oh, well, you trade with other players, but unless you are trading for the one thing that nobody else wants, good luck with that. You've got to be able to make a lot of stuff yourself. And the Charity Zeth just don't seem to be able to do that as reliably as other races. So, you know, I lost quite badly, and, you know, without much fun to the rules of them, they feel like the blandest faction on the expansion. You know, all the other factions have got more interesting stuff to deal with, but Charity Zeth, yeah, just felt very meh. So I don't recommend you play this faction if you're looking for a really good time. I don't think the faction's particularly powerful. I think the other factions that were in play, which I think we had the new version of the Bees, we had the new version of Imdrill. I'm not a fan of Imdrill in the base set, but you know, the new version was doing okay. And we had this other faction, the Enet or something, who basically says that you get to generate these cubes, but you can never use them yourself. That was interesting, but the problem is the combination of all those meant it was one of the highest scoring games for everybody else because they could produce so much stuff with all the stuff that was happening, whereas for me, you just couldn't do it. I mean, having to get my generators back of other players is just annoying, and no colony support, so we can't have any planets at all. That hurts. They're like a big resource generator, and not being able to do them at all just is painful. And that token you put out, whoop-de-doo. I mean, your starting generators aren't that great, and even then, you have to hope that another player takes the planet, which is hard enough to do when there's several out there, but when the B faction adds another planet to the row to choose from, it just basically makes your like game 20% harder. It just really didn't work, and consuming a planet is not something that people do very often, so you're not going to get the token back. So you're going to do it maybe twice, 3 times if you're lucky in the game. It just really sucked. I don't like Charity Zeth. I'm never playing them again. I challenge other people to do well with them at the table, but next week I'm hoping to play the Robots of Regret. High difficulty. Alright, next up, let's talk a little bit better. Very briefly, I just want to give some first impressions of Unsettled. I've played through the first planet. That's it. Just the first planet, nothing else. This is a space exploration game where all the planets come in these little boxes. You have a core set, and then the planets introduce some new rules for a particular scenario. It's not campaign based, thank God. And basically you have like a mission to do in order to survive, and there's 3 different ways that you can kind of play each planet. But basically you will move your explorers across these map cards. This is the first mission, so it's not really spoiling that much. But you have these dice, focus dice. Well, I say dice, they're technically cubes because you don't roll them, but you put them on various skills on your characters and they go up and down in focus, and you basically have to micromanage what skills you can do in a round because you have 3 cubes, but one of them has to be to rest, so you technically only get 2 actions a turn, and the timer is ticking down, and if it gets too long, then you run out of endurance and you die, so you know you've got that problem. But the idea is that as you go through, you're not soldiers, you're not shooting aliens or anything, you're researching what's on the planet, and in doing so you're getting these breakthroughs, and you're finding opportunities where if you take advantage of them you'll get anomalies, and these give you like really cool powerful bonuses, and with these bonuses you need to use these in teamwork in order to get past the mission. So, and you even get some starting variations to your skills based on draws from a big pile of skill sets, and you just draw one, so you get a bit of variety with the characters as well. It's by Orange Nebula, and the production is stellar. It really is nice. I mean, this is a step up even from something like Vindication. You know, you have got game trays, which are functional as well as useful for storage. You have very good quality cards. You have very nice artwork across the board. These big cubes that you use with the focus dice are huge and chunky. This massive, like, giant sweet gobstopper or whatever it is basically like an opportunity marker. I mean, it could have been a lot smaller, I must admit. I don't know why it had to be that size, the size of a planet, but you know, it does the job and it looks cool. But it's a cool little puzzle game where the theme is there from the standpoint of, you know, exploration and checking out a new planet, but at the end of the day it's an optimization puzzle. So I played I don't want to lose the game. So I have played the first mission, which is a sort of toxic spore type mission, okay? Now, I'm enjoying it enough, but I do have some reservations. So the game itself, as I say, it's well produced. And the puzzle is interesting. You know, you are really having to micromanage your abilities. You really are going to have to focus on what needs to be done, and you are against the clock. There are a couple of problems that arise. Firstly, being against the clock means that you don't get a lot of opportunity to really explore the way you want to. You feel like you're playing a bit of a rush game all the time, particularly if you were to play this on higher difficulties. I played this on standard, but you know, you don't feel like you can go after every opportunity. You don't feel like you can explore every location. You have to go against the clock. And if you spend too much time dilly-dallying, you're just simply going to run out of time, which is kind of a little annoying. I wish there was more ways to lose than just simply like running out of time. But on top of that, the game length is a little bit questionable. I mean, the weird thing is, on this page here, it says 60 to 90 minutes. The first planet box says 15 to 30. Both of those are lies. Both of those are lies. Now, granted, I was learning this straight from the rulebook, and the rulebook's not bad, actually. I found the rulebook to be pretty good, but there's a lot of rules intake. You've got to read quite a lot of stuff before you can really get into your first game, and there's no tutorial. I mean, it kind of handholds you a little bit for the setup and setting up the first planet, which is good. I'm glad they did that. But then they emphasize that the first planet is not a tutorial. It's just one that doesn't have a lot of complexity to it. And I kind of wish that they had done something like Tainted Grail and introduced a proper tutorial mission. Something that was nice and short, because there is quite a lot to get through in the rules. And I found that I was reading a lot of stuff before I could actually get started. And I haven't even read the full rulebook because there's a glossary at the back that is basically things I'll read as and when they come up. But yeah, it took a while to get into, and I played this for a good 3+ hours to get it set up, learn the rules, and play the first mission. So yes, I know that's not a typical playtime, but 60 to 90 minutes, if you're playing solo, I guess, 2-player maybe, but with 3 or 4, no way is that possible. You're going to be discussing with players, you're going to be thinking about what you're going to do, there's more people acting on the table. I mean, I'm only playing two-handed because you have to play two-handed as a solo player. I don't see why it would take 60 minutes to do that. But even solo, 60 minutes, I mean, if you know all the rules to the top of your head, and you have no trouble with checking any rules in the book, unlikely given that the rulebook's quite big. If you know the planet inside out, like you've already done it, you know exactly what's going to happen, in what order it's going to happen, etc. At which point, why are you playing it again when you've already explored it to death? And if you do not think about any of your turns and you just play at supersonic speed, in which case, well done, you're playing an optimization puzzle too fast and probably going to lose. I just do not get the time frame on the box. I mean, 60 to 90, if people want to argue it, fine. But the first planet said 15 to 30 minutes per player. No! Even if you do it by Explorer, I don't believe you can play the first planet box in 30 to 60 minutes. I think that is hogwash. If it's only by player count, emphasizing that as a solo player, I should be able to play this after setup in 15 to 30 minutes. That is complete BS. That is total BS. And I cannot believe that publishers are still lying about these time lengths. They really are. I mean, I don't expect the next one to take me 3 hours. I'm going to play the next one later today, hopefully. And I expect it to take me about 90 minutes, hopefully. So, and I would probably grant you 90 minutes is doable if you are playing at a good speed and you know the rules off the top of your head. But again, I don't know the next planet. So I've got to read the rules of how that planet works, and then I've got to obviously go at a slower pace for that. So that's going to take me probably a good 2 hours to play. This is not a short game, and it takes a while to set up as well, because there's quite a few trays you've got to lay out, and obviously the planet-specific stuff. So nothing about this is super fast, so do not believe the time frames it says on the boxes, okay? That being said, though, the optimization puzzle is cool. I feel that the rush mode thing is a little bit annoying. I wish you had more time to kind of just do it like you like. It's not a particularly sandbox-like game, because the survival path that you are taking, even though there's three of them you can pick for the game, which is quite cool, you are still kind of on a linear path as to what you need to do, and it's the only way that you're differing how you approach the scenario really is what bonuses you get from scientific breakthroughs and anomalies. That's kind of what's going to change your play style, but that's it. It's dictated by those. It's not me saying, well, you know what, last time I rushed it, this time I'm going to take my time. You can't really do that. So there's potential. There's potential in this game, but it hasn't bowled me over. I mean, a lot of people were saying they want to know my verdict, and I will certainly do a full review of this. There were some people that say they love this game, like this is one of their favorite solo games. I can certainly see why people are liking it. but I'm not getting favorite solo game vibes out of this. This is giving me kind of, okay, it's cool. I mean, I would probably sooner rather play this than, well, I don't know. ISS Vanguard is another spacey exploration game that you could play solo. There's way more rules, it is more complicated, and it takes longer. And it's a campaign, which I hate. But ISS Vanguard had a fantastic theme, and it really did feel like a good exploration storyline. This one is scenario-based, which is so much better to get into. Each of the boxes are played separately, and they do not form a campaign. Fantastic. But I don't know, the theming is there, but it's not as super strong, mainly because of the way that it feels more like a Euro optimization puzzle more than anything else. But there is some element of exploration there, but I don't know how often I'd want to revisit all the planets after I've played them once, maybe twice. You know, I reckon there's probably 2 plays of each box before I get a bit bored playing each one. Now, I have the Supernova Pledge, so I've got 9 planets, I think, to get through, like quite a lot. I do not intend to play all 9 before I review it. I will probably play 3 planets, like 2 from the base set and 1 of the expansion lot, and probably maybe play each planet twice so that I try out extra survival paths. So I'll probably play it about 5 or 6 times before I review it, but I'm not playing through all 9 planets, and that's not happening because they were expansions in a Kickstarter. If you buy the core set, you're only getting 2 planets. So I'm technically going above and beyond to review, like to talk about a 3rd planet, when technically I'm only reviewing the core set. So we'll get to that one eventually, just bide your time. It's not going to be a quickie. Right, take a little swig of that. Blimey, I'm on 37 minutes and I'm not even anywhere near the main topic. Although the main topic is going to be pretty short today, I think. So let's do what you guys love me to do, a rant. Oh boy, do I need to rant about this game. I have finished Pandemic Legacy games with my friends. And we wanted a break. We wanted a break from campaign and legacy and stuff like that. So we're going to play some one-off games. My friend had bought this little indie game from Kickstarter called Silverwood Grove. I had never heard of it. I don't know I didn't know if it was based on a book or anything. She bought it literally because it was relatively cheap and it was pretty. That was literally her only reason for doing it. And she's relatively new to games, plays a decent amount of games, but, you know, doesn't have a wide breadth of knowledge of what a lot of games out there. But I said, you know what, I want to try it. It's on your shelf. You said it looked nice. It's short, simple. I'll give it a shot just for something like a nice change. I wasn't expecting greatness from this, but I thought it might just be a pleasant little game. Oh boy, is it anything but that. This game basically commits pretty much every cardinal sin you can commit with regards to board game design. This is what the stereotype for an indie Kickstarter game is. Like when you see these tiny little games pop up out of nowhere with these self-published games, you know, with no backing, no like pedigree from the designer or anything like that. This is the stereotype where you think that the game is going to be absolute trash. And this game is absolute trash. Everything about this, apart from, I'm not even saying the artwork, because the artwork is okay, but the cover is probably the nicest looking bit in it. When you actually look at the artwork on the table, it's fine, it's colourful, but I wouldn't say it was anything particularly special. You know, so that's not a major thing. The action point system, it's a dated system. We should be done with action points. And it's not too bad that you have to turn this little wheel that you can see down there, an action wheel, to decide what you're going to do. So if I've got 5 action points, I have to go, right, let's see, I want to do the hire function, so I need to turn it twice to hire. Okay, that's 2 action points. Then do hire, that's 3 action points. Then I'll pen the 4th action point to turn it to build, and then the 5th action point will be to build. The problem is, there's no easy way to track your action points as you do it. I mean, you've got this little cube on your thing, but that's about it, and most of the time I just forget to do it. But it's not the easiest thing to sort of keep tabs on, and 5 action points is not a lot to achieve anything in this game, but it feels like a lot when you're waiting for your turn to come round. But let's go into sort of closer with some of these photos. Oh, nope, there we go. So, not the best of looker. I mean, you got dual layer boards, but they are very cheap boards. It's not asymmetric powers, they're just different artwork for them. You track resources, 4 generic resources with cubes. And you have a research track and a develop track, which is literally just put a cube on the space and you get a symbol which unlocks the ability to build certain cards. That's pretty much it. But why is this game really, really bad? Well, firstly, it's 10 rounds and you really cannot get a lot done in 10 rounds. You know, it is really restrictive as to what you can do. There are not a lot of options for you and, you know, it just feels very linear. These are player powers. Now, Dale of Merchants and Cosmic Encounter have a similar thing where they have all these player powers for different creatures that give you like sort of game-breaking rules. I have not seen a worse case of broken and unbalanced powers as these. There are some that are clearly light years better than others, and there just doesn't seem to have been any thought or play testing put into these. I had a power that basically, I think it was a kookaburra bird or something like that, a parakeet. And basically, it could steal, every time I triggered the ability, I could steal free resources from another player, turn my wheel to wherever facing it likes, and they get a solitary victory point. Which, in our game, you know, 1 victory point can be a little bit, but it's not that big a deal. But you don't get resources very easily in this game. I mean, you have to do pretty much an entire turn. Bear in mind, you only get 10 turns in this game, right? 10 rounds is 10 turns. You only get so many resources in this game. And the fact that those things can go up to 10 is just ridiculous. You will never have more than 3 or 4 of any resource at any one particular time, let alone 10. It's just not going to happen. But stealing free from another player not only is punishing, but also that could have erased their entire last turn. I could have basically just annoyed 10% of your game, and I have to cherry pick who I do this with. So if I pick on one player all the time, that's just mean, so I spread the load out. But it's not fun for them to lose 10% of their game every time I do this, possibly more than 10%. And even then, I give you a victory point. If I'm giving 3 other players a victory point each, that's nothing. I'm getting so many resources from that. It is way too powerful. And it doesn't end your turn. Some of these talents end your turn when you use them. Great. This one doesn't. No way. It does not. So that was no good. But then a friend of mine had a power that basically could copy anybody else's power. So it completely negated my power because anytime I use mine, she just uses it on me. So my power has become null and void, and her power ends up being broken and unnecessary. It just... Who thought up these powers? They were just ridiculous. On top of that, you have these icons at the top. You know, there's 3 factions that they can belong to, the green, blue, and the red faction, effectively. And there's no balancing as to which ones you start with, but it's usually with their abilities emphasizing the fact that you should hire and build, that you hire employees and you build buildings, and you should do it with the faction that your leader is with, typically. So you might have with 4 of you, 3 of you with the blue faction, 1 with the red faction. Person with the red faction is fantastic because they can get a lot of the red cards and nobody has to bother them. 3 people with blues are constantly fighting for the blues. Again, completely unbalanced. What else is there? The rule book. Complete load of trash. The rule book is so brief, doesn't mention key rules in the game, so much so that the community put up a fan-made rule book to balance the game out, and even then it's still not 100% clear. There is an FAQ that goes on for miles. I mean, this game is not a complicated game. How can you mess up a rule book for something like this? Absolute trash. What else is wrong with this game? The victory points you get for these employees are not balanced. I mean, 1 employee might literally get you 1 point, a couple of symbols, and that's about it. You know, not much. Another employee, the horse doctor or whatever it is, can be worth 15 points by the end of the game, and all you've got to do is simply upgrade him, which is not difficult, and get your research track up to max, which everybody should be doing in every game anyway, because having the research track at max unlocks your ability on your card, your player power, as well as other abilities along the way. So there is no reason to not research. You have to research. So my 2-point character, who barely gets me like a resource each turn, versus a 15-point character, I mean, we finished the game barely scoring, I think, 40 to 50 points. It's not a high-scoring game, and yet the score track goes up to 150. How the hell do you get 150 points in this game? I have no idea. That is impossible. Yeah, here we go. 153. I mean, it goes up to 153 purely because they just the board was just that shape. But in no way will you ever score that many points. It's ridiculous. Oh god, where else do I go with this? What else can I say that's really terrible? Come on, there's more terrible stuff than that. Yes, the building. Right, so I'll try and show close up of the building. I can only show so much, but these buildings, right? In order to build, you need symbols from the various characters and possibly from your develop and research tracks, which are exactly the same thing. They just get you a symbol. And, you know, like you can't build the storehouse unless you have a hammer and a quill or whatever. So think of it as the apprentices from Architects of the West Kingdom. It had a similar system, except it did it much better. Here, the buildings take ages for you to build, and you require these various employees in order to do it. And by the 10th round, you barely get 1, maybe 2 buildings out if you're lucky. You're not going to get enough resources to do more than that. But also, these employees and buildings are on basically like a display. And when you buy them, they don't refresh until the end of the round. But the problem is, because it is so hard to get resources in this game, as well as the symbols, you can end up with a situation where both displays remain so stagnant that it is nigh on impossible to see much variety in this game. Like, you're stuck with it. Which is then compounded by the other issue that there are objective cards in this game, and the objective cards, much like the player powers, are completely unbalanced. You basically have an objective, and if you complete it, you get points. Usually it's 6 or 8 points. 2-point differential, that's it, right? Put it this way. Somebody had a 6-point objective where all they had to do was get all their research track leveled up in 1 turn. You need 1 of every resource, so you basically just have to spend time collecting a bunch of resources, and then you spam it in 1 turn, and you get 6 points, right? Easily done. They did it on their second turn, I think. Probably even their first turn. Okay, so that was not difficult. My 8-point power required me to get 2 locations, which is already very difficult, and have their associated employees in them, because you get 1 employee for a building, and up to a cap of 2 or something, I can't remember. But the idea is that I not only have to find 2 buildings that are the right affiliation, but I have to have employees that match the buildings. That is light years more difficult than simply spamming your research at once, and it's 2 points difference. And because the displays are stagnant, if I've got blue employees and I'm hoping for blue buildings and the display remains stagnant, I cannot physically do my objective for no reason other than blind bad luck. This game is trash. Absolute trash. It is everything that is wrong with Kickstarter indie board gaming, where any Tom, Dick, or Harry thinks that they can just make a board game, stick it on Kickstarter, and get people to buy it. And people actually bought into this. I mean, where is it? Silverwood Grove Kickstarter. This came out in 2021. This is embarrassing that a game like this came out in 2021. Maybe COVID hit it in design playtesting, meant that it couldn't happen, but this, right, it got, how much did it get? 2,200 backers pledged 144 Australian dollars. This is an Australian game. 144,000 Australian dollars to bring this project to life. I don't know what $144,000 is. 10,000 Australian dollars goal, which blatantly would not be enough to make this game. But how much is 144 Australian dollars to pounds. How much is that, the conversion rate? So, 144,000. Not 144. So 144,000 is £76,000. This wasn't exactly a massive Kickstarter in the first place, which means the goal for this... Wait a minute, 10,000? So what was the goal for this? 5,000 quid. This Kickstarter was going to fund and do all the logistics and everything for 5,000 quid. No, it was not. But people actually funded this and backed it for what was a cheap price. I mean, you could get a collector's edition for 59 Australian dollars. You could buy the basic version for 39 Australian dollars. So this wasn't expensive. But BGG even put this as best Euro game in the 2020 card game design contest. Third place. This got third place. BGG, what cocaine have you been smoking to come up with that? Did literally everybody else just spontaneously combust in flames in order to give third place? This game is trash. I'm sorry, I don't I don't care. I'm saying this. I'm talking honestly, and hopefully you're enjoying this rant. If you love this game, fine. Please explain why you love it. I would certainly like to know. Be civil about it, but I would certainly love to know why you love this game. But I just found this to be everything wrong in design. The action wheel is probably the one saving grace of the game, but the actions you're doing are not fun, they're not interesting, the display is stagnant, and if you haven't already guessed, you are getting anthropomorphic animal characters that look all cutesy. You're getting the characters, and some of them will interact with other buildings, so that if you have the doctor, and if you get the hospital, you get more points. You get little buildings, and you track resources and spend them to do it. Is this giving you any kind of vibes? Yeah, Everdell. This game is totally ripping off Everdell. The game is practically taking the exact same theme and setting and using that. And Everdell came out when? 2018. So this feels like a complete cash grab. Like, oh, Everdell's really popular. Let me just make another cutesy little animal game about, card tableaus and stuff like that, and then people might back it. People who back this game, you got duped. Even my friend who backed this and showed me the game admitted, oh yeah, this is pretty terrible. It'd been a while since she'd played it last and she couldn't remember what her thoughts were on it. Everyone around the table admitted, pretty much halfway through the game, or earlier than that this game was terrible, but we had to soldier on and get through it. And when we finished it, we were so glad to play a game of Earth to cleanse the palate, because we were sour about this game, and boy did I have thoughts to say on it. Seriously. Silverwood Grove, I would actually give it a 1 out of 10. This is an absolute trash game. I can't even see if I would give it a 2 out of 10. It functions if you can understand the rules, which you can't do. They had to fix. I don't think you could play this game from the rulebook. The community had to fix that. The artwork is so-so. It's nothing special. The action wheel is maybe a saving grace. I'm not going to give you a point for an action wheel, because action points are a dated mechanic anyway. But the rules are bonkers. The players are the powers are unbalanced. The events are unbalanced. The displays are stagnant. The character victory points and buildings aren't even balanced. This game is just an absolute garbage fest. 1 out of 10. Avoid this at all costs. Well, there you go. Did you like that rant? I hope you did. It's been a long time since I could unleash that, and you know what? That kind of makes me feel a little bit better. So better that I'm going to take a drink. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So, have I got something nice to finish up with? Well, this is only going to be a short discussion because it's 53 minutes already, so if you wanted a bumper episode, you're certainly getting one. But I want to talk not necessarily about Kings of Ruin specifically, but just a kind of revelation that I've had recently. I've played through the entirety of Kings of Ruin. Okay, the entire campaign now. So I really love Tainted Grail. I think the story and setting is amazing. I like the combat and diplomacy systems in it. I think the artwork is gorgeous. There's a lot of stuff I like about it, but I have to house roll the difficulty a bit because even on story mode, the game is just frankly too punishing. And there is a bit of a grind fest with the original version. Now, Kings of Ruin fixes a lot of that, but I still had to house rule a few things. It was still very punishing in some aspects, and to reduce the grind, I definitely did try to house rule an easier difficulty, because I wanted to experience the story rather than grinding. And the story is still really solid in this. I still really like the setting and what you do. But by the time I got to about chapter 6, 7, maybe chapter 7 odd, I was starting to get to a point where I'm like, can this finish already? I feel like this has been taking up my table for a long time now. And I basically spent Bank Holiday weekend binging through about 6 chapters of this game to get it finished. Because I was just getting to that point. And certainly chapter 9 onwards, I was kind of a little bit done. Because I don't want to spoil too much about the story, but basically put it this way. Halfway through the campaign, you're going to get a choice of to go 2 routes. One of 2 routes. If you go whichever route you pick, you will spend the next 3 chapters focused on that particular route. And then you spend chapter 9 dealing with the ramifications of the other route because you didn't pick the first route. And that's cool. It gives you a chance to replay the campaign a second time by simply going the other path, which is cool. But then chapter 9 is literally just going through that. It's quite a long chapter, but you're just basically dealing with the after effects. And then chapter 10 is the resolution, of which the final encounter did feel a bit like a grind fest. I mean, there was definitely some house ruling that needed to be done there. It definitely felt like this was padding the game out a bit to make a finale climax. But by the time I was kind of done with chapter 8, I was just like, yeah, can we rush this along? I kind of need to get this finished. And it's not necessarily Tainted Grail being a bad game. You know, I do think, as I say, the difficulty in some of the grindiness came through a bit more by the time we got to the later sections. But there was also a couple of instances where I kind of trivialized some of the game. I found a card in Kings of Ruin for my character. I was playing, is he Oberon? Or I forget his name. He begins with a no. Osbert, that's it. Yeah, Osbert, a little dwarfy type character, right? So I was playing him, and I geared him up to be a diplomacy munchkin, because I just hated the fact that the first Tainted Grail focused so much on combat. I wanted to see if they'd fix that. Now, there is definitely more grounds to use diplomacy in this version, particularly with the boss encounters. You can choose combat or diplomacy, and each one has their own way of working. So I was glad of that, but the game, I feel, still really wants you to do combat in some respects, because I had to basically run away from 95% of the combats that I came across, and the only way I could do that was because Osbert has a very cool ability to make smoke bombs, which basically allow you to run away from a combat and ignore the outcome. Fantastic, but you got to spend action points in order to keep making them, which is annoying. And certainly I must have house ruled a few of those cards that say automatically resolve an encounter when you go to them. I'm not a fan of those. Yes, there's a delay after you've done it, but it doesn't last that long, and then when you go back to the location, you have to do another encounter, and it's just like, I got to the point where I'm like, look, these are annoying. Can I just do one encounter and then that's it for the card? That certainly made life a bit better, but certainly I was making a lot of those smoke bombs. But the diplomacy card I had basically meant that I could, you have like a duration counter, and you have to try and end with the diplomacy marker on green a lot of the time. The card I found, I won't tell you how I got it, but basically it allowed me to raise the marker as much as the duration counter, and then resets the counter to 0 so it ends the diplomacy. That card was so damn powerful in the game that it trivialized diplomacy encounters for bosses. I basically found that it was quicker to resolve the diplomacy than it was to set up the actual diplomatic encounter itself, because if I had that card, I basically just ended it, and it was easy to time with the other items I had. And bosses had that. I finished a boss battle, a level 2 boss battle, right? They come in 3 different difficulties for each one. I did a level 2 version on the first card played. Literally, the thing started, got a few raises from stuff I'd done before, used 1 or 2 items to get a couple of other raises, and then because the duration marker, I think, was like pretty high, used my card to raise it all the way up again. It went to green, and the whole thing ended. 1 card. Wow, for a boss. Now granted, it's not easy to get said card. You have to go through quite a big personal story in order to do it, but it still trivialized a lot of the diplomatic encounters, which kind of was a little bit weird for me. But what I'm getting at with this is that campaign games, I think, for me, I'm done. You know, I like Tainted Grail and I still love it, but I'm actually now trying to sell my collection of Tainted Grail. Easier said than done, because each season of Tainted Grail is like £250 worth of stuff that I can't post, and I am not taking this to the Games Expo. No way am I trusting it in the Bring and Buy there, because the Bring and Buy at Games Expo sucks, but it's just clogged, chaos, and full of theft. Not going anywhere near it. But the thing is that as much as I enjoyed my experiences with the Tainted Grail series, and I still have churned a lot of hours into this and still enjoyed my time, 90% of it, I have got to the point now where I think campaign games are just not as enjoyable for me anymore. And a lot of that is down to time. There's a lot of games I want to play and I just can't, because the games are just too long. They take ages to finish, and my time is precious. I'm a 40-year-old man who, granted, is lucky enough not to have kids, but and unlucky enough not to have a partner, but not to have a girlfriend. But the the fact is that that would take up a decent amount of time in itself if I did. But even without that, I run a YouTube channel. I have a full-time job, which is quite demanding. I have a social life to go to game nights and do other things. And there's other hobbies. I mean, I want to play computer games. I want to play my PC and play like Cyberpunk and Jedi Survivor and Deep Rock Galactic and Valheim and stuff. Stellaris I'm playing a bit of. I want to watch TV shows. I want to, go out and hike. I want to go to the gym. I need to keep myself in shape. I want to learn how to cook more stuff. There's a lot of stuff I want to do. I don't have the time to go through one solitary game for hours and hours and days and weeks and months for a campaign. The Pandemic Legacy Season 0, this group of ours, we can only meet up once a fortnight, and that's not always happening. And, we're lucky to get through a game on each night, maybe 2 if we're lucky. It took us 8 to 10 months to get through Pandemic Legacy Season 0. It just took forever, and we were just like, can we play something else now? Even by the time, I gave my review of Pandemic Legacy Season 0, and I thought it was only a 6 out of 10, because I had problems with it. But by the time we got to, I think, August, September of Pandemic Legacy Season 0, I was done. I'm like, the story's not that engaging, we're rinsing and repeating a lot of the same stuff here. Let me get the picture up while I'm at it. But, you basically just rinse and repeat so many of the goals and objectives and stuff that it just wasn't that engaging, and the story's not very good in this, and a lot of the branchy path stuff mean nothing. It's all there just for show, and it really didn't work out for me, this one. So by September, I just wanted this over, and it just felt like a chore to get through the remaining months, which is not how I want to feel in a game. And I've got Divinus down there. Divinus came as a late Kickstarter. I don't even know why I backed it. I think I previewed the prototype. My friends liked it, and we thought we'd buy it. But it's now sitting there, and we are going to play it. I think this will probably be the last campaign game I do out of choice, but I'm not looking forward to this. Reviews have been very meh for this, and it's another campaign game. All I can hope is that this one is short and quick, and we can get it done nice and fast. But I'm not looking forward to it. I can say that much. Rank 8881. It's not exactly getting a huge amount of buzz. Who can I? Let's see. Sam Healy did a live play. Fine. Can't trust that. Dice Tower did a review. Yeah, they did a. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. So, who can I trust review-wise here? So we got a lot of these people I've not heard of, so I can't speak about them. But Neverboard Gaming did a preview of it, so it'd be interesting to see what they think. I did a preview ages ago, so I was kind of keen on it back then. I said, this is fine, not amazing, but I'll give it a shot. But this was back when I actually cared about previews. But yeah, not a lot of people that I can say I overly know or trust on this one. But I looked at the Dice Tower one. Tom Vassell did it with his children, and they only gave it 6s pretty much for the most part across the board. So yeah, this one I'm just not expecting to be particularly good. But the thing is that I just don't feel like I want to play any campaign game anymore. I'm at the point where I've looked at my collection of games, and I actually can't find many, if any at all, that have campaigns in them. Now, that's not including expansions. So, this War of Mine has one of the best campaigns I've ever played. I think actually it beats Tainted Grail in terms of campaign that I love. It's called Days of the Siege, and if you have this War of Mine and you can get Days of the Siege, do so. This is a 3-act campaign, so you only play 3 games and finish it. So I'll probably play a campaign if it's short, but long ones no, like these Awaken Realms ones or these massive ones that say here's 150 hours worth of content. Even if Unsettled wasn't a scenario game, I would not be playing 9 planets of it as a campaign. It's just not going to happen. But if you can get Days of the Siege, this is easily the best campaign I have played from a story perspective, from a mechanics perspective. It is absolutely brilliant. It's one that I would actually maybe replay at some point, because I am kind of done with campaigns, but it's only 3 games. Wouldn't take me too long to go through it again. It's tempting, but it's only because this is that brilliant, okay? But other campaigns, I just don't think I actually have on my shelf. I'm looking back, and the only ones that I can see that I believe are campaign-based So they require me to go through specifically a lot of games in order to finish them. As far as I'm aware, off the top of my head, the only ones that I have now, if by the time I sell Tainted Grail, is going to be the LCGs. Lord of the Rings LCG, Arkham Horror LCG, and Marvel Champions LCG. They have campaigns. But even then, I'm not playing them a lot lately because of time, although I do want to play some Marvel Champions soon because I want to print out the dividers for them. I want to play it. I've missed it. And also because I'm enjoying the X-Men 97 series so much. It is fantastic. You have got to watch that series if you are a Marvel fan or you like X-Men. It's so good. Cannot wait for the finale next Wednesday. I've got to so avoid spoilers for that. But the fact is, because I'm riding such a hype train with that, I want to play Marvel Champions and I want to play a Cyclops deck, to me, my X-Men deck, because I just kind of in the zone for a bit of it. So, but the thing is, I don't like playing the LCGs as campaigns anymore. Arkham Horror's campaigns are 8 sessions long. They take a long time to get through. And so by the time I'm halfway done, I'm like, and that's put me off playing Arkham Horror LCG. Now, you can play standalone, but the standalone rules for the middle of a campaign are not brilliant. I don't love them that much, and so there's not much incentive. But the standalone scenarios that Arkham Horror LCG does are pretty sweet, and there's still one I haven't tried, the Fool and Fortune, or Fool and Folly, whatever it's called. It's like a casino-based one. Haven't played that one yet, so I do want to try that at some point. But standalone scenarios, I'm cool. I haven't played Lord of the Rings LCG in years, but that one's a little bit better with standalone missions, I find, even though there are some, some like rules for playing the campaign ones. But again, they're campaigns and they're typically, 9 missions? Maybe 8 or 9 missions, those. So they take ages to get through the entire thing as well. Marvel Champions has, campaigns in them, but I actually actively dislike the campaigns in them because they throw in some like fiddly little extra rules, but on top of that, they're just not balanced for difficulty. I mean, they are super hard in Marvel Champions to get through some of those campaigns, particularly lately. The power creep is insane. Some of the bosses that you fight in the campaign are so difficult that they're just not fun. And the good thing with Marvel Champions, though, is that it is a lot easier to do standalone because Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings were built as campaigns, but then they had extra rules to make the mission stand alone. Marvel Champions is the opposite. These missions feel like they are designed standalone, but and have added rules to play them in campaign mode, which means that every time I get one of these box sets, and I am literally looking at the base set as well as 7 boxes there. There's 7 box expansions that have come out for this game, and I have them all, despite my better judgment of buying into a game that's... The thing is, if I wasn't sponsored, if I wasn't getting sponsorship and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't be buying a lot of these LGGs, but to be fair, that's what some of it, some of my own money goes on, to just buy a few of these extra LCG packs because they are cool, but there's a lot of content there. But I can play any mission in there standalone. There are some standalone scenarios, like I haven't played Mojo Mania yet. I really want to play that one. That's standalone. The Kang scenario, really great, standalone. But even the campaigns themselves, I have not... The last one I played all the way through, I think, was Galaxy's Most Wanted. And didn't like how powerful the enemies were. Ronan is ridiculously hard. Even the Collector was pretty hard. And I just didn't enjoy playing it. So... I have not played the Titan's Shadow campaign, I have not played Next Evolution campaign, I've not played Mutant Genesis campaign, and I certainly don't intend to play Age of Apocalypse campaign. I'm going to play them as standalone missions, but they will be standalone. I'm not throwing in the extra campaign rules, so if I want to fight Apocalypse first, I'm going to do it first. I'm just going to do that one first. I'm not playing it in campaigns. I just don't like them. And I think it's just the time commitment. I wonder if other people have this similar problem with it, where, time is the killer for a lot of these campaigns. And there are some games that I think are good that I've avoided because I can't play enough campaign games. Tainted Grail's been the one that's been on my shelf as the go-to long campaign game. Now that that is finished, I'm done. I don't even feel like I want to play a Tainted Grail 3 at this point because I just feel like I'm done with long campaigns. But I passed up ISS Vanguard and Oathswarm. both of which I thought were pretty solid games. You know, both Oathsworn has a few flaws, and ISS Vanguard has a few flaws. They're not as good as Tainted Grail. But both of them are like, here's a bucket ton of content and all these hours and this massive setup and all these rules, and it's just, I haven't got time to devote to you. If I had no job, then maybe, but then I would still probably want 4 gaming tables just so that I could have them all laid out and never have to pack them away, because unpacking and packing a campaign game is usually a complete ball ache. You know, they may have save game functions, but they still involve a lot of setup and a lot of takedown, and you're not incentivized to, you know, have them out. So to pack them away. So you want to leave them out, which means they clog up your table. The table was out of use with the underlay for months. It was annoying. I wanted to play other games, like I played the Great Western Trail New Zealand solo mode twice the other couple of days, and I enjoyed it. I'll talk about that maybe in a future review, but I couldn't do that on this table without getting rid of Tainted Grail first. But it felt good to play a game that, yes, those solo modes for Great Western Trail take a long time. They're not short, but at least they end. At least they end on the same evening that I'm playing the wretched thing. I don't have to go away and leave it there and then come back to it at some point soon. There is that problem. And I passed up those campaign games and other campaign games on the horizon. There's the Iridia one. I think Orange. I forget who's doing it. Shadowborn Games, or is it Shadowforge? I don't know. They're doing one called. What was it? It was coming out of Games Expo. Awaken or something like that. I'm not sure, but as I say, they're doing something. And if that's a campaign game, I'm just not that hyped up on it. And I've passed up a lot of other campaign games. I just don't want to do them anymore. I just want to play a game and have it done and dusted. I love scenarios. I can play Marvel Champions as a scenario-based game, which I think is why it's going to be now my favorite of the 3 LCGs. I think it has risen above Arkham Horror at this point, if it didn't already in my top 100. But if I was to say, right, I'm only going to have one LCG and sell I'm going to sell 2 out of the 3 LCGs, I think I would keep Marvel Champions because I can play it easier on a scenario basis. But, you know, a lot of these other games, they could be long. I mean, I could play a Lacerda game behind my head, right? A Kanban EV, I could play that solo. It's going to take me a while to set up. It's going to take me a while to play it. But at least it will be done on the evening I play it. At least it finishes. It has an end timer that isn't several months into the future. And if you play a game solidly over and over and over and over again, unless the game is so good that you just can't bear to live without it, it's gonna get stale. It's gonna lose its effectiveness by the time you get to the end of the campaign. And I'm just finding that a lot with the vast majority of campaign games I play. Even the ones that I really love, I get to a point where I'm just done. I'm getting bored. Can we move on to something else? That's probably why I like playing shorter games rather than longer games a lot of the time, because the shorter games, you can fit more of them in a night. If you're only playing one game the entire night, you've only played the one game. That one game better be amazing, like a Gemini. But, you know, I do make an exception for that game being stupidly long. But, yeah, it's kind of the way it is. So, honestly, I think for the future, excluding Divinus, which I think I'm going to be forced to play, I think that I'm done with campaign games, and I don't think I want to play anymore. I don't think I want to review anymore. I think I want to stick to one-shot games with scenarios. If there's a lot of content but they're scenarios, I'm fine with that. Unsettled is fine, right? There's 9 planets, but they're scenario and they don't link together. Great. I even tried Massive Darkness 2. I sold it eventually, but at least that one you played as scenarios. That was fine. And a lot of other games that I haven't played in ages that I want to play, like Chronicles of Crime, still on my shelf. I've barely tapped into all the expansion content that game has, but you play it in scenarios. It won't take long for me to get back into it. Any other examples on my shelf? Mansions of Madness, perfect scenario, perfect example. You play it as a scenario. You might play a 90-minute scenario, you might play a 4-hour scenario. It is a scenario, they don't link together. Once I'm done with the scenario, I can pack it away and I don't have to get it out again the next day. So that is definitely, as I say, a keeper. Even the Arkham Horror board games kind of fit into that. Anything else that's on my shelf I'm looking at here that benefits from being scenarios? Marvel Dagger. Yeah, that is scenario based, and that one definitely works. But A lot of these bigger games are all scenarios. They're all scenarios. Empires of the Void, great space game. It's scenarios. Sleeping Gods. Now that is a campaign, but to be honest, when was the last time I played Sleeping Gods? I think it's a good game, but after I played it all the way through once, I haven't had the desire to get it out again. I've got to solo hand 9 characters and go through all that again. And it wasn't a perfect game. It's a solid game, but it's not perfect. I'm not entirely certain why I've still got it in my collection. I think that one probably has to hit a coal pile at some point. Near and Far has a campaign mode in it. We've played the campaigns all the way through. I have no desire to repeat the campaigns. But is the scenario system in Near and Far good enough to just play one-offs? I'm not convinced it is. So, that could be a problem for a coal pile. Anything else? Let's see. Scythe. Oh yeah, the Fenris campaign was okay, but it wasn't great. But honestly, I think I would have been just as happy if I cannibalized the whole box and simply decided not to do the campaign, but just to take all the cool bits out of it. I think it probably would have been better doing that. Again, a campaign. Anything else? Dominant Species, no. Ghost Stories, no. Seven Wonders, no. Caverna, no. The LCGs obviously are campaigns. Looking down there. War of the Ring, the card game. No, that is a one-off. That is a one-shot. Feast of Odin, one-shot. Fields of Isle, one-shot. Pandemic Iberia, the one Pandemic I do keep, one-shot. Yeah, most of them are one-shots, which is great. I just think that's the way I'm going. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I think it's time to wrap this up. This is a very long episode, which hopefully you've enjoyed. But yeah, I think I'm done with campaigns. There may be exceptions to the rule. This is not necessarily I'm going to say pathologically never, never, never again another campaign game after Divinus, assuming we actually play it. I'm hoping I can convince them we don't need to play it, but I think they do want to play it. So I think Divinus is going to be the last official campaign I play. But after this, honestly, if you're bringing out a new campaign game, I'm going to be less enthusiastic about it. And if it's going to be one of these 100-hour campaign things, I'm probably not going to want to buy it. I mean, Stalker was an example. Stalker looked like a cool game, but was it campaign based? I can't remember, but it may be cool, but I've no interest in buying it if I'm forced to buy 100 hours of campaign content. You don't experience 100 hours of campaign content. Tainted Grail and Efferfields and all that lot had so much content in the game. You're never going to see it. Also, why is it there? I don't know. This is my sort of pet peeve. I have a feeling that this, I'm going to try and objectively stay away from campaign games. Maybe one will come out that's based on something I truly adore and I make an exception. Maybe if you tell me the campaign's really quick and short, like the Days of the Siege one I mentioned earlier. 3 games, not that long. You tell me it's something like that, I might be more interested. But if you are trying to sell me a game that's like a 200-hour, massive, huge, £250 Kickstarter with a ton of content, that's a huge campaign, I'm just going to be like, cannot be bothered. I just don't have the time. I have a lot of games on my shelf that have been neglected as a result of campaign games. Suburbia Collector's Edition I haven't played in ages. I really want to make sure and I justify that. The Mind Clash games that I do like, Dracarion and all that, I would like to play that with the expansion more, but need the time to learn it. Spirit Island I haven't played in a while, I would like to play some more games of that. There's so much I want to tap into on my shelf. Time is a precious resource. I'm not getting any younger. My life is not getting any easier. Not unless somebody can grant my wish when you wish upon a star that you win the Euro Millions. If somebody could grant my wish and make me win the Euro Millions so I can cancel my job, then believe me, I would be the most ecstatic person in the world and I would do a lot of gaming, and probably a lot of cruising, but still, it's just that situation now. So what are your thoughts? Are you done with campaign games? Do you have the time for campaign games? Are they the only things you play? I mean, I can totally get that if you're not a big plethora, if you don't have a massive board game collection, but you just have 5 campaign games that are your life, then great. Gloomhaven's that example for a lot of people. And I totally get that. So I'm not in that situation. If you are, then fantastic, and I can see that you'll love campaign games. But for a lot of you, are you siding with me? Are you done with campaigns? Do you wish they were shorter and quicker? Do you like these massive, huge things that suck up all your time because it's a massive cost? But then if it didn't have so much content, then maybe it wouldn't cost so much. There is that. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Are campaign games good for you? Or like me, are you just kind of dumb? So yeah, that's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple, this bumper episode. Next time I'll do some kind of a UK Games Expo preview, but I don't know if there's going to be that many games to talk about. It will probably just be a kind of tips and tricks of how to attend and get the most out of the convention, as well as what I'll be doing when I'm there, because I'll probably have solidified a few more plans by then. But I'll be there for the whole time, show preview and everything. So, and I'm not helping out with the stand, so I'm being very laid back. I tend to do a lot of my formal blog stuff with Essen, because Essen has more reason to do it. The Games Expo, I tend to go as more of a consumer, with the occasional bit of formal stuff throughout the day sprinkled in, like little sprinklings on the top. So I don't tend to go full formal, like appointments and stuff for the Games Expo, because I just don't think it's that worth it. But, hopefully I'll see a bunch of you there. But I'll talk more on the next podcast. So, bumper episode over. My throat is sore. Gotta get on with other stuff, and it's hot in this room. So take care. Love you all. Remember, it's only a game. And, bye for now. Enjoy the hot weather. Damn, I wish it was cooler.